All right, I'm back. Just had a bit of hiatus for a lot of reasons. Partially because I just wasn't in the YouTube video making mood, I guess. I can kind of understand where a lot of these content creators come off saying that. I used to not think that way. This YouTube thing, even though I don't do it the best by any stretch, I'll say that much. I don't even know how to get pictures on my fucking videos yet. Though I've tried on my desktop and everything else, it just doesn't, it won't upload or nothing. I can't figure it out. But needless to say, I'm back now for the moment. I never did promise an upload schedule, anyways. I just upload whenever I feel like, and I don't plan on making this a career. Anyways, I just figured I'd check out some comments from my last video because Conundrum left a pretty long and decent comment on my last video I made about, well, basically him and the video he made. That, like, I also kind of noticed I was getting a little cranky um, about a lot of things. Just a lot of problems are coming up. Allergies, quarantine, lack of cigarettes really sucked. I noticed I was getting a little, oh, I don't know, cranky in my videos. I listened to a couple of them back, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I was being a little unfair and stuff like that. But anyways, I'll just get to it. All right, so here's a comment from Conundrum that, well, I guess it's been 3 weeks that he left in my last video. All right, he says, interesting title. Thank you for this response, my man, and no problem. Every act of philosophy expands and creates new arguments, new perspectives on the problem, new responses, etc. When I was mentioning the lack of new arguments, I had this fact in mind. And fair enough. I think the problem is that it's just not quick. This is not a very fast process, especially for the new arguments. New perspectives, maybe, I suppose, on the arguments already presented, and maybe some new responses, but I don't know how that's going to work out. Like I said before, I'm trying to soften my approach a little bit. Thank you to No Brains in Head for pointing that out. But yeah, I mean, I think antinatalism kind of writes itself, in my opinion. But anyways, new arguments. That's going to take some time, though. It took how long for somebody like a Benatar to come along, who kind of, I think he kind of just piggybacked a little bit off Schopenhauer. If I could be mistaken, but it seems like it because Schopenhauer did point out the asymmetry a while back. And he ain't the first. Schopenhauer wasn't even the first, if I remember correctly. There was others, but lighter's acting up. But we'll go on. Next paragraph. Vegans actually have many aspects to their activities in different ways for arguing for their cause. There are some branches in veganism and possibly even branches stemming from those branches, and because of that, they're able to appeal to many different people because they talk about welfare ethics, abolition ethics, environment, health, among others. Vegans do work on new arguments. You have arguments based on deontology, rights-based veganism or abolitionism, on negative utilitarianism, or even on virtue ethics. Philosophical papers are being published in journals. There is activity. There's activity in antinatalism too. There's an Antinatalist magazine, if I remember correctly. There's books being written. I mean, stuff to that effect. People are out there talking about on YouTube, on the internet, all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, to say that, I wouldn't say the antinatalist movement is stagnant. I would say that it's one of those things, like, it's something that you just sort of accept. I don't know how to put it better. I wish I could. And there are sort of different branches, in a sense, to antinatalism, and there's like that kind of stem off of that, and I think you kind of go off onto them over here. But there's like birth strikers, child free. I guess there's Vimpt. That's where I was looking for. Ephilis, so on and so forth. That kind of stem from that. I guess Ephilism is his own thing, but it kind of, I don't know if it, I don't know what, I would say antinatalism was first, so it kind of grafted itself and said, well, if you take antinatalism to not just humans, but to other forms of sentient life, then yeah. I mean, to say that it's completely stagnant, I think is just, I don't think that's really fair. I don't see it. I see quite a bit of activity. I see more activity now with antinatalism than I did even just a few years ago. Maybe that's just me, but that's what I've been seeing. And I'll just go on. The reason why I brought up Ted Kaczynski is because he's one of the most known philosophers of the anti-tech movement, and he, as I said in the video, sketched out a strategy for accomplishing the goal: destruction of global industrial civilization. There's no such thing for antinatalism slash effilism. The thing for antinatalists is the goal is to try to convince as many people as possible not to have kids, whether it be through, sort of front groups like maybe birth strikers or child free, or, through presenting the arguments, like a lot of people out there do. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily one of them, but that's kind of the goal. That's the plan, as far as I'm aware. You don't need to have this etched out in stone. And besides, Kaczynski failed miserably, considering the level of technology we have now. And you could go about making, like, just because you have a plan doesn't mean it's going to be carried out, or it's going to be a good idea. Like, the way he tried to do it probably hurt his movement more than it actually helped. And as far as effilism, I think we know what their plan is. I don't want to spoil it here, I guess. I might get taken down. But yeah, I can picture it right now what their plan is. If some of the stuff Gary's ever said is coming into my mind, it just seems like a fast way to get on a watch list or get my channel taken out or something. But anyways, I'll move on. Transitioning to a childless life means living in a world where you don't have children to benefit from many things, such as being taken care of when you're old, having some relationships, things to do, something to get purpose from, instead of relying on children for everything just mentioned and more. It's about making life more acceptable and easier, especially when getting older. You can do that without. I guess that makes a lot more sense in what you were talking about. I was thinking more or less along the lines of the individual transitioning to a childless life, not so much the society as a whole transitioning to that. Again, it's going to take a while, but yeah, I can get where you're coming from. And we might be experiencing that anyways, because the generation, at least I think like Gen X and the Millennials and Gen Z and all them, they're fewer in number than the Boomers. So we're probably going to get some practice here before long to see how that works out. And I'll go on. Protesting in front of fertility clinics was just an example of real world action. I don't recommend this action. Well, good, because that's not a good way to do it. Like I was saying before with the whole Ted Kaczynski thing, just because you have a plan and you carry it out doesn't mean that it's actually good for what you're trying to accomplish. That I don't see how that would be a good thing. I just pointed out that anti-abortion people strongly believe in their cause, so they do what they can. Antinatalists don't do much, if anything, so, well, I mean, antinatalists do quite a bit, I would say. You don't have to think that people have to hand out flyers or, gun people down for stuff like, for their ideology or what they believe in. You don't necessarily have to do that. At least I don't think so. You can be a pretty peaceful antinatalist and convince people not to have kids. I've done it. Maybe one of these videos that's convinced someone not to have kids. Who knows? It'd be great if it did. I know in my real life I've convinced a few people to stop doing it. And I didn't need to hand out flyers or any of that. You can only do so much, though. And maybe we could be doing more. I don't know. But I'll get on to why it's really kind of hard to just kind of be out and about as an antinatalist. Vimp do make some real-world actions, handing out flyers, peaceful protest, etc., and their goals are the same as those of human-centric antinatalists. So I won't ever buy the counter that antinatalism is so new, so unique, so special, something like that has never been tried before, because it's not so. Vimp is proof of that. Well, here's the thing, though. Vimp's kind of flying underneath the banner of environmentalism. Antinatalists aren't doing that. So they can kind of get away with more. It's more of a life-affirming thing by saying that we're sort of a virus keeping all the other, other sentient creatures down and destroying their habitats and stuff. And, some hippies are going to buy into that. And I don't think anyone out there is ever saying antinatalism is so new, so unique, so special. Maybe unique. Well, maybe not even that. It's really not that unique or special. I don't think that anybody's ever argued that. Did I say that in my last? I don't know if I said that in my last video. It's never been tried before. If you think you can go out there and sell people a hard negative, feel free to try that. I don't know how you're going to do that. And what I mean by that is a lot of people think that they can sort of carry on through their genetic line by having kids or whatever. Obviously, it's not the case, but people aren't exactly the most rational animals on Earth, and I would say I'm not the most rational person either. And them sort of hide behind some sort of life affirming stuff to go with it. So maybe helping them out might be a good idea too. Bird strikers, I think personally, might be a good one, considering the systems that we have in place. Most people don't like them, so why breed more slaves for this fucking machine? Basically, I can get behind that. I think most people would, but like I said, presenting a hard negative to someone and expecting them to just be like accepting it for the average Joe, it's just not going to work, I don't think. And that's kind of who I'm trying to get to is like the regular people. I'm not interested in like the halls of academia or something or somebody in an ivory tower. I'm looking at the regular, rank and file, brick and mortar type of people because I'm one of them. So that's who I'm trying to reach, if anybody. And I just don't see how I can really sell antinatalism on its own to them. That's my problem. So it is I guess in that way, it is kind of unique. It's really hard to do that, especially when most people are brainwashed through optimism and all that sort of stuff. I addressed the problem of fear in my response to Forever Wolf films. People in different communities have the same problem. Homosexual folks, transsexual folks, atheists in many parts of the world, sometimes even vegans. Somehow they manage to break the wall of fear. I don't diminish the problem. I'm just saying it's not a stopper. I don't think that fear. I kind of sort of disagree with. Thinking back on it, I kind of disagree a little bit with Forever Wolf Films. That fear is kind of what's stopping us. I think it's the fear that other people have when presented with these sort of arguments because they just want to keep this game going. At least that's what I'm encountering. So I don't know. And as far as homosexual, transsexual, atheists, and all that sort of stuff, they're not attacking life itself. As far as I know, I mean, I can understand why people would be against these folks. Like for homosexual folks, like they're not procreating, so people are like, that's a no-no. I guess it's a little bit life diminishing in a sense. Transsexual, like not going with what God gave you, which is stupid in my opinion. If you're transsexual, you're fucking transsexual. Like these groups of people have been around for a while, atheists too, and vegans. But the thing is, they're not really giving out a hard negative. They're not bringing down an indictment towards life. They're bringing an indictment towards society and not accepting them. There's a big difference. Or not adopting a more ethical lifestyle, something to that effect. They're not going against life itself. That's why I'm saying we have we got like a fucking monster Goliath ahead of us, which is the thing that we're all driven to do. We're kind of stepping in its way. Everyone has like a life driver in them, and even like suicidal people do too. But I mean, I could go off on a riff about that, but it's just such a big, big, big thing that we're facing here. It's like It's like Goliath on fucking steroids, and we're like the regular sized Joe David. Like, we got to find something to really hit home. That's what I'm thinking. I wish I could explain it better, but I'm a little tired, and I felt like I needed to make a video, so I guess it's not really a good excuse, but either way, I'm going to use that. It's been a little bit. I'm not a great speaker either. I normally don't talk this much. I got really nothing nice to say anymore, so I just don't. Okay, we'll go on. The purpose of a critique is not to drive from the backseat. Your backseat driver attack totally misses the point. It's like saying to a movie critic, why don't you make your own movie, you backseat driver? It's unreasonable. Fair enough. I was kind of piggybacking off Forever Wolf Films when she said it, if I remember correctly. Not to try to use her as a shield or whatever, but your video did sort of kind of come across as that in a way. Maybe it's the tone you presented it with. I don't know. But it did kind of feel like, in a sense, it's like, why aren't you doing something? Why can't you do more? Why can't you do this, that, and the other thing? But from somebody who's not doing it, I guess, is what I'm saying. I don't know. It just seemed like that. Maybe that's not what your intent was, but it kind of felt like it in a sense, I guess. I guess I'm going with my feelings here. My feels. But yeah, it did kind of feel like you were attacking the group as a whole when I think we're kind of doing the best we can with what we have. Like, you're going to face a lot of ad hominem attacks. You're going to face a lot of problems. Probably in a unique way compared to, like, gay people or transsexuals, atheists, vegans, all that sort of stuff. because people will just shut down too when you bring this sort of stuff up. When you point out the blatant asymmetry of life, a lot of people just shut down. They just lose their hope. They can't really, refute what you're saying, so they just sort of attack you. They have to find something to attack, and it just kind of, I don't know how to put it, but it just doesn't seem like it gets through to them where they just don't want to. They don't want to listen. That's part of the problem. That's what sucks. That's what sucks. And, all right, last sentence. I'm glad you found the end of the video at least somewhat valuable. And I did. Yeah, you don't have to go out there and, if I remember right, you were saying something like you can volunteer and do other things. Like, you don't have to be an anti-natalist activist. You don't have to be an anti-natalist, brother, big brother or sister or whatever. Like, you can just be a big brother or sister. You can go help the elderly, the homeless, that sort of stuff. I've done it before in the past. I don't have the time now. But, yeah, you can do that. You don't have to go in with any sort of, you know, I don't know what, with some sort of label before that, I guess is what I'm saying. You can just do it and alleviate suffering that way, because that's really kind of the end goal, anyways. So, yeah. Thanks for the comment, Conundrum. Yeah, I was kind of I thought I was a little unfair in this video. I'm going to keep it up, but still, like, yeah, maybe I could have been a little nicer. Like I said, I was in a kind of a crabby mood. Was trying to find videos. If I remember right, like, I was trying to find some videos to respond to, and they were just so dumb, it just pissed me off. And, yeah, something to that effect. And there was a lot of other stuff besides that. So, anyways, I'll go on to this next comment, because I think it sums up kind of what I wanted to say, really. It's from somebody named Gay Rad Feminist Beard, which it's a that's a good name, actually. I like that. Um, and it says, politicizing any pessimism seems far-fetched. Yes, that's what I'm kind of thinking. Anti-natalist political party or political lobbying? Again, yes. I don't know how that would work, because it would go against the interest of the state, like directly. I don't see how that would work. That would change nothing at all. It will give I think it would change it for the worst. It will give other groups the right or privilege to reproduce, and worse, antinatals will be a fade and will die because of it being misrepresented by more idiots. Yeah, I could see it leading into some sort of eugenics. I think he or she's trying to say. It would just kind of get twisted around. Instead of thinking like it's not a good idea for anybody to reproduce, it'll say, well, these guys, yeah, I think this group over here has the right genes or whatever, has what it takes to make it through life, so we'll just let those guys reproduce. And that kind of stuff. And completely just twisting the philosophy to suit some sort of end that they may have. It could even be like for some sort of state utility anyways. Maybe the state could find a way to make this work. But depending on what sort of government's running it, I can see some bad things coming about from it. And then they go on. This is the subject for the geniuses. Without them, we cannot ever realize it. With technological intervention or just plain natural extinction event, we guarantee the end of sentient suffering. The broken record is going to continue without tech and colossal into life. And yeah, I kind of agree. Maybe not really necessarily a subject for geniuses. I don't know, because if it's just stuck in like the realm of like where geniuses reside, which is usually like, academia or something like that up in their ivory tower, it's not going to reach the people we want to reach. The ones who are, having the kids usually. Smart people don't really, if they do have kids, they usually don't have many. So we're trying to reach, the people down, I guess on the lower end of the spectrum. I really don't like saying that. The spectrum of intelligence, I guess. The lower end of that. People like myself, I guess. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be, if antinatalism reaches its end goal where no one is having kids, it will probably not be in our lifetimes. And I'm not saying just sit on your hands and not do a fucking thing about it, not try to get the word out there, that sort of stuff, but we got to sort of sow the seeds or whatever, get it out there more. This is kind of our chance to shine, because we got things like the internet, social media, that sort of stuff. And you don't have to go out there and protest in the street. Like, I found out recently, actually, that there's protests like every single day in Washington, D.C., and I never knew that. How many protests just get ignored? is what I want to think, or just get glossed over by the mainstream media. If you can just bring the idea directly to them without some sort of, framing that usually, like, I guess mainstream news media and all that sort of stuff likes to give, I think you can do a lot more good than the other way around by having protests and handing out flyers and all that sort of stuff. And then somebody like, Fox News or someone getting a hold of it and then putting their stupid spin on it or that kind of stuff, instead of just directly kind of inject the idea into them and say, this is what's up. I think that's a lot better idea, personally. And I try to do it the best I can, which is why in one of my videos I say I like to be as blunt as possible. And yeah, I guess no brains in head now is what he goes by. Is kind of says you don't have to be that way, and I kind of agree with him. I still kind of am, but that's just whatever. It's just my personality, I guess. Then just another YouTuber said, he said in the comments he tried starting something but failed. Yeah, I can understand why it would fail. I'm not even going to get mad. I mean, I'm glad he tried starting something, but I can understand why it failed. It's really hard to sell this to people. And I think Brad Feminist Beard pretty much summed it up, really. It's really hard to politicize something like this or get like a massive movement like this that isn't kind of like a kind of a groundswell, I guess, like grassroots, like in there, that kind of stuff. Like going from the top down is not a good idea, I don't think. You need way more people on board with it. It's not something we can just we can't just half-ass anti-natalism or effilism. Definitely not effilism. You can't just half-ass it. It's you're going in both cheeks, okay? So I think the best we can kind of hope for, if there is going to be any sort of political anything involved with this, is to get somebody in a position of power who has these sort of leanings or is famous enough or whatever, who's fairly vocal about it and can explain himself well and not, or herself well, and not, damage the movement more than they help it. You know what I mean? Have good optics when it comes to that and explain their positions well. That's probably the best we can hope for, especially now. And I'm not saying that you can't do other stuff, but that's kind of the limit of my imagination at this point. So, yeah, I don't know. And, yeah, I kind of agree with Conundrum here. Yeah, you can do stuff. You don't even have to volunteer as an anti-natalist, whatever. You can just volunteer and do something. You can get behind other movements that aren't overtly anti-natalist or have that in their name, like VIMT. I'm not really a big fan of them, but it kind of gets the job done. Burst Strikers, I prefer that more than anything. Child Free, yeah. Yeah, it is kind of petty, in my opinion. I don't think it kind of helps or hurts more than it helps, I think, but maybe that's just me. Kind of what No Brains in Head said. That was a word I was looking for the longest time from him, and yeah, that was that. So, anyways, yeah, I'm back, and just wanted to read some comments and get my YouTube muscles warmed up again. So, thank you for listening, and have a good one.